Okay, I want to remind everyone to let everyone to try to have a chance. So let's start with people raising their hands to ask questions, and I'll call on you, or Alex can call on you. John.
I have a question about, because you talked about the yin and the yang and the way the symbolism, the way the book began or the way that the idea begins. And as you talk about that next to the binary system, and like within the I-Ching, is there a big emphasis on numeric value? Not I mean like one, but just the units. Is there like a unit, a value placed on, or is infinite? It has no. Just when we break it down, or when we start with the two symbols, and then it goes 4 and 8, and so on and so on.
The values.
How is the numeric value interpreted?
The numeric system is very complicated in the Book of Change. The one that I can think of now that you asked me is the odd and even numbers. So according to the Book of Change, the even numbers are the yin, and the odd numbers are the yang. So, like for example, number 1 is number of heaven, number 2 is earth. Then we go again, 3 is heaven, 4 is earth. Then we go like this.
The result of the equation is yin, then I would take a softer approach. Is that kind of the interpretation of, or like in terms of interpreting? Like if the result of the equation is yin, then I would take a softer approach if I was looking for some enlightenment from it.
If the number is even number, that means that we have a yin line. So that we have the line.
So that would be more of a theme.
No, that's because we have to find a hexagram, so we need to come to the numbers. We come to even numbers, we write yin. We come to odd numbers, we write yang, and then we got the hexagram. Okay? If we got 5, then the first equation, then we have yang, right? Then we have 9, we got another yang, and so on.
I guess that maybe that feeds into my question. How did they write this stuff down? They didn't have whiteboards. What did they do? How did they keep track of all this?
Shells.
Because they used this. Probably they wrote them
On paper, pen and paper.
Yeah, they should pen and paper at those times. I don't know. They use these sticks, so they counted the sticks, right?
So they actually literally maybe did it in their heads and then laid out sticks on the floor or something.
Okay, yeah, maybe they wrote them.
Have more questions?
I want to know where you were getting the numbers. Maybe I missed it, but where'd you get the numbers? We take 4 from this side, 2 from this side. I don't understand where you got 4 and 2.
That's from these 50 or 49 sticks when we divide them.
Sure.
Right? Like
oh, I see. You're taking 2 and then you're doubling it to 4 from the other side.
Yeah, like here we have a pile of sticks.
Yeah.
And then we first take 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Then 4 again.
Why do you choose 4? You're just dividing it by 3 so you get a number?
That's the way of how they did it.
It just has to be 4. You
Yes.
can memorize that. Okay,
Yes.
that's what I was wondering, where that random number just came from. Okay, thanks.
More questions?
In terms of the, the oracle, whichever person is being the oracle at the time, you really just have to depend on the person's intuition of how to interpret the numbers and the meaning of the written words.
Oh, that's the question?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, well, in many sources I read that yes, the oracles have to be concentrated, like they have to concentrate on the question, to have some intuition, but they depend on the text. They have to interpret the text. When they have the question, a given question, they have to know the question in order to give the right answer or to the interpretation to the question.
I'm sorry I came in late too, but so let's say like I go to somebody, I ask a question. Where do the numbers come in? What do the numbers have to do with the question if somebody's getting, trying to get some sort of divination?
The numbers we just
Yeah.
talked. The numbers come from these sticks. When we divide the sticks, we have like 4 sticks left, so we have number 4. And then we do this procedure 3 times, and then we add up the numbers of the sticks left, and we get the value for the line, for the first line.
I'm sorry, I'm still not getting the connection between the question and using sticks.
Oh, the question and the using sticks. Okay. Well, probably there is not much connection, but there had to be some way to find out a hexagram. Which hexagram will answer the question? Or the question.
So like if I'm gonna ask you a question, then you're just gonna like whip out some sticks and start putting things together.
Okay, we can do with coins, for example. Sometimes they use coins, and it's very quickly. Like one throwing, you get the first line. We don't have to do this because this procedure maybe can last for half an hour. Let's say 15 minutes, skillful oracle or whatever. Like coins, and one side of the coins has the value of 2, the other one has the value of 3. So if 3 of them are 3, then we have 9, which is odd number, and that means young line, right? If we have 2 and 3, we get 4 and 3. So again, odd number, so we get a young line, undivided line. And 6 throwing, we get 1 hexagram, 6 lines.
And 6 lines is actually 2 pieces connected together, right? I mean, each set, each page on the I-Ching is a trigram. It's 3, right?
Yeah. If you go deep into analysis of a hexagram, then you can analyze it in many different ways. I mean, the skillful experts in the Yi-Jing, they can analyze. Okay, let's take something like this, for example, and this. So here we have like the first. Yeah, I'll use another. Markers are good. Like here we have the division. 1 trigram is this. That's the first one here, which is the father, right? And then another trigram, which one is this one?
Yeah.
This one here, right? So they're the basic trigrams that consist the hexagram. The way is if you want to go deep into analyzing the meaning of the hexagram and finding an answer to the question, then you analyze it like this. And then you have another way, like they're so-called nuclear trigrams, which are inside. And that's like the second line, third, and fourth. That can be taken as 1 trigram. Or the third, the fourth, and the fifth can be taken as 1 trigram. They are the nuclear trigrams inside the hexagram.
More questions?
What about of all the practices that have come through the I-Ching, do you have any idea about what is the best example that's lasted throughout the martial arts practice?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Like what practices best exemplify the principles of the I-Ching, besides the big religion, Taoism, and Confucian, like in society back then, how did it manifest itself in terms of practice?
At the time back then,
And this continued maybe.
well, if you ask about the time back then, it's a very long time to know what kind of practices they had. The practices like Tai Chi Chuan, martial arts, Qigong, they are pretty of much newer date, like maybe from this era, like in this current era. Which means the Book of Change already existed for more than 1,000 years when they invented the martial arts or the Qigong, or how it's called also, like the outer alchemy, right? The inner alchemy. And they're mostly created by Taoist priests, by people who belong to this religion, Taoist religion. And that's why you can see this sign in many Taoist temples here. You cannot find it in the Buddhist temples, only in Taoist temples. This way you can recognize which temple is Taoist, which one is Buddhist. Right? There is a connection, of course. And you also have seen this sign of the martial arts schools or somewhere. Everywhere when there is a martial arts school, they have this sign, I-Ching, right? The yin and the yang, the energy. That's the connection.
Are you familiar with any philosophical writings in particular that discuss the hexagrams in depth? Apart, I mean, from, okay, like, we relate them to Taoism and Confucianism, but is there any, like, really in-depth, like, talk about the hexagrams themselves?
Well,
From a philosophical point of view.
I mean, apart from the commentaries in the Book of Change, which I said that there are two layers, like the text.
Yeah, I mean, later
the
on, like,
commentaries,
through
they were-
the centuries as
Okay,
Taoism developed.
Yes, there is. Like commentaries were added later, as I mentioned, that they considered coming from Confucian sources. There is also like very famous scholar in the 3rd or 4th century. It's called Wang Bi, and he gave a very good interpretation of the Yi-Jing. He's mostly famous about interpreting Lao Tzu, but he also interpreted Yi-Jing. And he says the hexagrams are he goes like something like this. That the hexagrams are symbols, and the texts are explaining the symbols. We cannot understand the symbols without the text, without the words. But the words cannot really explain the symbols. So we have to we have to kind of get rid of the words in order to understand the symbols, but we need the words in order to understand the symbols. It's kind of, yeah, maybe it's very like paradoxical, but or like Wittgenstein maybe. We need words to understand the symbols, and then get rid of the words, right? Like the ladder. We need the ladder to climb up to some place, and then get rid of the ladder, throw out the ladder. Yeah, and by the way, this philosopher lived only 23 years. He was amazing, doing very influential commentaries on the Book of Change and Lao Tzu. Yes, and then the Neo-Confucian period, Song and Ming Dynasty, especially Song Dynasty, they also focused on the Book of Change. And they took, as I said, this sentence, what exists before physical form is Tao, and what exists after physical form is the concrete thing. And on this they based their philosophy. And today we also have people who write many books about the hexagrams.
There are no absolutes, like in terms of fixed values, any of the symbolism. Everything. There are no absolutes in terms of like fixed values to any of the symbolism. Like it's even within the equation, the parameters of the equation are constantly changing as well.
You mean absolute values for the hexagrams?
For the symbols, like for each of the symbols. I mean the whole, I guess, has
Yes.
an absolute value.
Yeah. Okay. Every hexagram has a name. And the name can be like the hexagram that is consisted of 6 young lines is usually translated as activity. It's a symbol of Father, Heaven, and strong, bright. The hexagram with 6 yin lines usually is translated as passivity, and it's a symbol of Mother, I don't know, like river, maybe Earth. That's it. So they all have symbols.
For example, if you get a broken line, a shallow line, a broken line, that will always represent the same value? Or
No,
does it change?
no. In every hexagram, every line has a different meaning. That's why there is in the text. There are texts that explain every line. So every line has a different meaning in each hexagram. Like if this line in this hexagram means something, in another hexagram, this young line, it means something else. Yeah.
Okay, so why do we have nuclear trigrams?
That's for
What's the purpose of that?
in-depth analysis.
Mhm.
Like, if you want to go into the, like, when you analyze the whole hexagram, we divide it into the elemental trigrams, right? And then if you want to go deeper into analysis, you take the nuclear trigrams, and you see their meanings, and that's it.
My question is, I watched a TV show about 2012, and there was a mathematician and then I-Ching
James
did
McKinney.
computational analysis on. I can't remember the conclusion, but do you have any comments or are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar with any.
Angel and I are. You can ask us
Maybe
later.
after.
Okay.
Really?
I was wondering, it's sort of like what he was asking. So someone comes with a question, and are you supposed to meditate on the sticks and think about them and then throw them? And then if they land in a certain pattern, then you divide them up? Or is it like they land in this area and these ones land in this
No,
area?
they're at the table.
They're already lined
Yes,
up.
and then using your both hands, you divide them into two piles.
You do this while you're
Yeah.
like meditating, or you just decide? Right? How do you?
What if you get them into even piles?
No problem.
Yeah, but I don't understand what makes you decide how to divide them based on the question. It's just a missing link. I'm not getting here.
No, the question is there. The questioner has already put this question. And then the fortune teller is doing this. He's
Yeah, I
doing
get that.
Yeah.
Well, with tarot cards, you shuffle them and then you turn them over. With tea leaves, you drink them and then there's a pattern. I'm just trying to figure out how you get the pattern with the sticks. You're saying they're already lined up on the table.
Yeah. Because the 49...
And then you just divide them. But you can do that same thing every time for everybody. So
No,
what
no,
makes...
no, no.
Yeah, I know
No,
you can't, but I'm missing... I'm missing the part where you're saying how you do, like how does the fortune teller choose how to divide the sticks?
Yeah, it seems like kind of a subjective kind of
Well,
call.
yeah,
where
divination,
you
yeah,
might
that's...
I'll just take 2 this time.
Yeah.
No, you can take 2 this time.
And the next time I'll just divide them in half and.
No, you always
how
divide
do they,
them.
how do they know what's going to come? How do they know that they're making the right decision? Or
They don't know. They don't know. They have to divide them into 2 piles first at the beginning.
Right.
They don't know how many sticks are in the left and how many in the right one.
true.
But they try to do it in half.
Do they just
Well,
try?
so you're saying there's so many sticks,
They don't
but
have
they
to.
can't see how
No,
many
they don't
sticks
have to
They
divided.
don't throw them on the floor first.
Right.
Not like throw.
No.
Okay.
Is it the hexagram, because they're all different, is that more the interpretive value of,
The what?
well, the hexagram, that the sticks are mainly just to complete the equation, but then the hexagram is the essence of understanding?
By using the sticks, you have to come to 1 hexagram.
Yeah, and if the hexagram is how it's interpreted, you get fixed values?
No, after you get the
Sticks?
hexagram, you forget about the sticks. You don't need the sticks anymore. You focus on the hexagram and the text.
So you get fixed values from the
Yes.
sticks,
Yes.
and then you apply them to the
Yes.
hexagram?
Yes.
Okay, Jim?
Basically, my question is that, like, it seems kind of odd that you would start from a position where you categorize the universe as constant change, and then you move to try and predict it. Like, what is there some kind of a justification in there? Like, where did they make that jump? Like, was it just pure? It just came down to pure belief and being afraid of what's going to happen in life, or was it like, did they actually have something that they said, well, the universe has changed, but we're going to try and predict what's coming up? I mean, yeah, because like in the 20th century, like that, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle basically was the dawn of postmodernism. And before that, we had like people in the West, even up into the 19th century, were trying to do something similar. Like, but I mean, like, why were they like? Where was that leap of faith based on? Is what I'm wondering. Like, how could you go from a position of, okay, the universe is constant change, yada yada yada, and then go into trying to predict what's going to happen in something that's constantly changing?
Yeah, that's interesting. We can maybe go the opposite, because the Book of Change was first used as a book of divination. It wasn't a philosophical work. The commentaries came who added this philosophical meaning of the Book of Change. And the change, as you say, like if everything changes, then we want to know it. The change doesn't mean that something will change and become different. Or the opposite of change is not the rest. The rest is also part of the change. In the change, there is the movement and the rest. So this is not like when the change stops, then everything rests. No, when the change stops, everything is destroyed. There is nothing anymore. The rest is also part of the change. As to this divination and philosophical connection. Maybe I can use Jung again. Jung thinks that the Book of Change is actually a leap into the unconscious. When you ask the Book of Change, when you have a question, then the Book of Change makes a leap into the unconscious. You want to discover what is in the unconscious and how to act, how to direct. That's his interpretation, which not necessarily we can agree. We have to agree with it.
Because when you said that, it made me think, like, I think a lot of our confusion is coming from, if it's supposed to predict this one person's future, but you have an oracle and there's no interaction between the person whose future is trying to be told in the oracle other than asking the question, then you mentioned Jung and figuring out, like, some aspects of somebody's psychology. Who are we psychoanalyzing? Are we analyzing the person with the question, or are we analyzing the oracle, right?
Well,
I mean, because it seems like if the only person is speaking is the oracle, you'd only be able to psychoanalyze the oracle.
No.
And if the other person doesn't even touch the stick, so they have a question, I guess you could psychoanalyze their question.
Maybe.
Sorry, that wasn't a question, but can you respond to that?
Yeah, okay. Psychoanalyze, okay. Jung is this Jungian interpretation, of course, has a lot of problems, of course, and not everyone agrees with it. We can say that the oracle, maybe, if we follow Jung, maybe goes to the unconscious of the questioner. On one hand. On the other hand, maybe it goes to the unconscious of the whole universe. You know, like there is something we see, but there is something that is hidden, something unconscious in the universe. Maybe it goes there.
Okay.
I'd like to add something to what Jim was saying about time. Sort of what I've read, not necessarily through I-Ching, because I've never read that, but through I guess Neil Donald Walsh. I've been curious about that same question most of my life, especially when I tried to read cards or do divination, and I found that I always wanted to know how things can be under constant change, and yet how predictable is this, and how can this be if you're supposed to have free will? And I found something in Neil Donald Walsh's book which kind of hit closer to what it's a theory, but what I think might be the case of how you can have both change and predictability at the same time. If you have all time existing at once, and every single past, present, and future is all existing at once, like some physicists will say, then if you're predicting something that is happening in the future, it's actually happening right now. So it can't be in disagreement, because you're predicting something now that's happening now, but in another time, but that's all happening now, because all time is existing at once in this one framework. And if you're changing, but this is in constant change, so if you're changing one thing, then you change it all, and then it's still true, because once you change everything, then you don't have the same kind of thought that you just had, because everything's just changed. So if you're predicting something's going to happen in the future, I don't know how to explain this. It's like when they're messing, you know, in Star Trek, when they're talking about space-time continuum, and if you mess this up, and it'll change everything. Well, if you change something, it'll change everything all at once. So therefore,
yeah, that's true.
Therefore, it's changing everything, but it's still true. So you're still predicting a future that is true.
It's very true that it can be like that, but you say it changes everything, but maybe it changes nothing, because we wouldn't know what would be the situation if we hadn't changed it, if we hadn't asked the Book of Change to answer. Like, for example, there was one like a famous example. Some king asked about the future, asked about his son. Will my son, like when China was divided in small countries, small states, he was king of his state, and he asked, will my son be a king? And then the result was a certain hexagram with answer, and it was saying like, there's like the king will be guest to another king. So the interpretation was that his son will actually won't be a king of the state, but he will be a guest to some king, but that his son or his later grandsons would become kings. And then what happened in the real history happened that the king was lost a battle and he had to escape from this country, and his son really became a guest to another king, and then his son became king of this country. So do we know, I mean, if he didn't ask the Book of Change, how do we know that this would happen? And if he asked the Book of Change, and he knows about this, he said, wait, the Book of Change said that I'm going to be a guest, then I have to go there. But if he didn't know this answer, what would he do?
Yeah,
So
you're
you never
saying,
know if he didn't
you're
ask the
saying
Book of
that
Change, it
psychologically,
wouldn't happen.
if you predict someone's future, they think that's going to be true, and therefore they act on that. Because that's what I also worked with the cards and was
Can be.
trying to. But if you do experimentation, you can sometimes write down a reading and not tell the person, and then see how much of it is coming true. And how
Yeah,
much
you
is
can don't
not.
tell
So
the
you can
person,
do,
yeah.
You can do that, and then see, okay, because I used to think, yeah, that's for sure what's happening. Obviously, I'm telling people da-da-da, and they're going to go, this is going to happen, and they behave that way. So I tried this. I tried a lot of experimentation. It's actually...
Okay.
Do we have any more questions?
Back to those sticks.
Okay.
Is
I
there any,
like the sticks.
is there any theory in the book about, again, how the sticks are divided? Or again, is it just, as I said, just a subjective kind of split, or is it just random or something?
Yeah,
Is there
I don't know. I
is
can
there any
read the
reason
passage
or-
if you want. Maybe
Yeah, any reason or
more
way that it happens?
Yeah. Why don't you read that passage and then we'll finish on
But
that.
that's the same thing. €50 stocks make up the set used for consulting the oracle. However, of these 50, only 49 are used. One is set aside right at the beginning and placed no further apart. I shall not go into the speculation of number symbolism that were attached to this and to the remaining procedure. They can perfectly well be omitted from a description of the method as such. The 49 stocks are now divided at random into 2 heaps, and the stock is taken up from the right hand hip and set apart. Usually it is placed between the little finger and the third finger of the left hand. Here. Then the hip on the left is taken up and counted off by force until 4 stalks or less remain. These are again put aside. Usually they are placed between the third finger and the middle finger of the left hand. Then one proceeds in the same way with the hip of the right, counting off by force, until again 4 stalks or less remain, which are placed between the middle and the forefinger. The sum of the stalks remaining in the hand, inclusive of the first, forms the result of the first manipulation. This sum can be either 5 or 9. So the sum total of the manipulated stalks consists of a number divisible by 48 plus 1. Okay, do you follow this?
Yeah, I think what we're unclear on is what does random mean?
Yeah.
Does that mean he lays them out and closes his eyes and puts them down like that, or are they in a pile and he kind of feels? Is that, I mean...
And then there seems to be a system there. You describe that. You move forward, take forward, that, and that. And I just wondered again, was there any sort of theoretical kind of description or justification for that? So,
One thing about that, I think I don't really have, like, I haven't read I-Ching, I don't understand, but I've heard stories about, especially martial artists, who, applying it to a practice and understanding it that way, it has excelled, right? And obviously in practice, the I-Ching is passed on for thousands of years. It's the basis of martial arts, a lot of medication, a lot of different practices.
Yeah, as I said, the Book of Change is the basis of the whole Chinese culture.
Who studied Tai Chi for 20 years, and he said, when he sat down to try to read the book, he said it was just like he got lost in it. But just when he put it to practice, and it didn't put it all, if he didn't apply it as the book laid it out, but he took some of the principles of it, and then he started to come to realizations. And it also with his practice, how the I-Ching was affecting his practice of martial arts, and it was kind of back and forth.
You have any last things to say, Alex?
Well, wasn't there another way of like getting the hexagrams with the tortoise shell?
Oh no, the tortoise shell. That was before the Yi-Jing. Yeah, and they were like when they heat up a tortoise shell and it spreads. Let's say it's cracks. Yeah, and then there are some lines there, and according to the lines, they answer the question.
But those were not hexagrams.
No, that was before. the hexagram. I mean, they may overlap, but this is like old system, and the I-Ching slowly replaced the tortoise shells divination.
So, yeah.
We're after 9:15.
Okay.
So let's finish up. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.